stay-at-home mom. My dad sold carpet, and he had a heart attack, and had a long period without employment, and then the bills stacked up. We lost our family station wagon, and we came right to the edge of losing our home. My mother was 50 years old when she took her best dress out of the closet and pulled it on, put on her high heels, and walked over to Sears to get a minimum wage job. And I'd just like to stop and point out, back in the 1960s, a minimum wage job would keep a family of 3 afloat, and that's what it is for us. It was Friday morning, January 15th, 2010, and the calls started coming in early. I was at home, up early to work out on the treadmill in the basement, and I was still huffing and puffing when the phone rang for the first time. Had I seen this morning's Wall Street Journal? The rumors were flying on Capitol Hill. The consumer agency wasn't going to make it. In an effort to move the larger financial reform bill forward, Senator Dodd would trade it off. There might be some face-saving attempt to set up a new consumer protection department somewhere else in government, but there would be no strong, independent agency with the authority to get much done. The insiders sent the word out. Too bad, so sorry, it was a good idea. But unless the agency was dropped from the reform bill, the whole package of legislation would fail. Better to toss the consumer agency overboard and get the other reforms through. I listened. So this was it. The consumer agency was dead. So I asked if there would be a vote, even a losing vote. But the answer was no. The death wouldn't be a public execution. Instead, the Senate Banking Committee would propose a financial reform bill with no consumer agency. No one in the Senate, not one single Democrat or one single Republican, would ever have to vote against the agency. Instead, it would just be quietly suffocated in its crib. No one would ever know exactly who killed it or why. So I asked my last question: when? How long before the locked-in version of the bill would be introduced in the Senate Banking Committee, with or without the consumer agency? Best estimate, 3 weeks. I called Dan and I said, Dan, we've got 3 weeks. The way I saw it, we had nothing to lose. I didn't want a job in the Capitol, so what did I care if I ticked off a lot of people in Washington? This was our last chance to get the agency into law. If we lost now, we lost forever. We have very little information about what had led to the latest assault on the agency, but we did know one thing. The Senate did not want a tough vote on this issue. Dan explained what that meant. The consumer agency was popular, and to a lot of senators, a vote on the new agency meant having to choose between angering the public and angering the banks. And they didn't want to anger either. They preferred a quiet and slightly mysterious death for the consumer agency. So I figured, too bad. Too damn bad. More than one president of a local union told me that other politicians would come to them for money and endorsements. But when they left the union hall, those same politicians spoke only in code, never saying the word union in their speeches. I think it mattered that in speeches and rallies and roundtable discussions, I was glad to say the word, long and loud, union. The way I saw it, unions had helped build America's middle class. They fought for better wages and reasonable hours. They fought for safer factories. They fought for pensions and retirement security. They fought for health care coverage. And every one of those benefits spread to other workers, union and non-union alike, which made the whole middle class stronger and more secure. And when the squeeze was on, unions showed up to fight for Social Security, to fight for Medicare, to fight for a higher minimum wage, to fight for equal pay for women, and to my great delight, to fight for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Often, during a campaign, I would hear the phrase, corporate and labor influence in politics, as if corporate and labor were somehow two sides of the same coin. Really? Does anyone believe that an army of lobbyists fighting for tax loopholes and special breaks for one corporation is the same as unions fighting for Social Security and equal pay? Does anyone believe that when corporations give money to take down unions and support so-called right-to-work laws, that there are unions giving equal money to try to put companies out of business and themselves out of a job? Does anyone think that for every billionaire executive who can afford to write a check for $10 million to get his candidate elected to office, there's a union guy who can do the same? Give me a break. Here's what I see out of this. Washington works for those who can hire an army of lobbyists and lawyers. It just doesn't work so well for families. I saw it with the big banks. They cheated American families, crashed the economy, got bailed out, and now the 5 biggest financial institutions in America are 38% bigger than they were during the crash. They still swagger through Washington, blocking reforms and pushing around agencies. They break the law, and no banker even faces the inconvenience of a trial, much less a little jail time. We can whine about it, we can whimper, or we can fight back.
Hear,
Me,
hear.
I'm planning to fight back.
Hear, hear.
I'm planning to fight back. I'm planning to fight back all the way. The game is rigged, and it's up to us to do something about it.
Under the surface makes the mainstream get so nervous. It's time for purpose, for news to serve us, not with propaganda they use to hurt